So what is interesting about our project is that when we were thinking of ideas, our group mate came up with an idea to develop a database for his own company back home. We are bringing into reality a database system for Aquatech, a company in the waterproofing industry. So the database that we have developed lets the client and the admin use the database. So what the client can do is the client will be able to give feedback or view the services that are offered by the company. So if the client wants to give feedback, he can go to this option and then choose the project ID, which would have been decided beforehand by the company and the client. Since we have already populated these fields and given dummy data, we right now cannot choose one and add feedback. So I will first go add a project and then come and give the feedback for it later. So while going back home, you can also view the services that are offered by the company by clicking on this button, and here you see all the services along with the charge. Now going back home, so now we will see the features that are provided to the admin. So the admin clicks on his respective button, and the admin can use the forms to either update or create new fields, or he can view reports of the company. So if the admin wants to create a form, he clicks on the form, and then he gets various other options such as adding a project, adding a service, a work assignment, that is adding the number of hours an employee worked for, adding a client, or you can add an employee. Now if you want to add a project, the admin clicks on the project and then chooses on one of the existing clients that have already been created, because each project is associated with a client. So if I create a project for number 4, the estimated costs we can enter as 2525. The address can be 800 Renner Road. Address 2 can be a number or any other thing. Then the city, you can add the state, the zip code, a start date can be chosen, and the end date can also be chosen, and the project status is active. So if I say add new project, now when I go to projects, I will be able to view the new project that I created. This one, the client ID that I chose was 4, a new project ID was automatically generated, and this will be shared with the client, and this is the details. So if you want to edit a record, you will go back to a previous record. Say I want to edit this record again, and I want to change the zip code to 12321, and then I again say add new project, and let's go and see what has happened here. Here if I refresh, you will notice that the zip code has been edited. Now going back home, if the admin now wants to add a service, he clicks on add a service, and if he says add service, a new service ID will be generated, and then you can enter the service name and the charge that you're going to charge per feet, and then say add service. If the admin wants to assign the number of hours an employee is worked, he chooses the project where the employee has been working, and then the employee ID, and then chooses the hours, the date, the month in which the employee worked, and the year, and then you say add assignment. Now similarly, if the admin wants to add a client, he chooses the client name, adds the address to city, the state, the zip, and the email address. Now if he wants to add a new client, he clicks on new client, and then you can enter the data. But if you want to edit an existing one, you go back to the data which you want to edit, and say you want to edit the data for Virat. You say I want to edit the zip code to 74789, and I say add new client. Now if I go and check the client data, you will notice that for Virat the zip code has been changed from 274,789. Okay, if I go back home, the admin can now also add an employee, the employee ID, the name, and all the details that are here. If he wants to add a new employee, he clicks on add new employee and he goes to the end. But if he wants to edit an existing employee, he goes to the record of the employee, makes the changes, and then says add new employee, and the employee details will automatically be updated. Going back home. Now if the admin wants to view the reports, you go to the reports, and the admin has a lot of options here in front of him. He can get the report of all the clients. If I say that, I get all the client name, the address. This is our report. The admin can also get reports of the assignments, the number of hours an employee has worked. And this is the project ID and the employee ID. So each project and the employees that have worked in that project, and the hours worked by each employee, the date of the work, and the month and the year. Going back. Similarly, you can get the employee report of all the employees in the company. You will also get the feedback report of the feedback given by the client, and that so a client can have multiple projects. So if a client chooses to give a feedback on this project, he gives the feedback, and so on. That's how it goes. So a client can have one or two or many projects, and then for each project there is a feedback. Feedback may or may not be a required field. I mean, it's not a required field because a company can give, a client may choose to or not to give feedback. Going back home. Now if the admin wants to get reports of a project, he clicks on project report and he gets all the reports of a project, the client name and so on. And then you have the status, whether it's active or it's closed. If the project has closed, you have the end date as well. Similarly, you have reports for billing. If I click on billing report, you have the project ID, the services that were offered. So project 1, service 1, and the amount, the date, the month, and then the year. This is when the bill was generated, and this is the amount. Going back home, you have a payroll report as well. So what the payroll report does is, we have a query for payroll because we couldn't have a calculated field as discussed with the professor for the payroll. So we wrote a query separately and then populated the field here. So if an employee 1 has worked in different for different in different months of the same year, 1 and 2, total worked hours, the wage ID. So wage ID decides the amount per hour, and then the payment amount. So similarly for employee number 2, he's worked only in 1 month, and there's employee number 3 who's worked in 2 separate months, and the hours worked and the payment due. You go back, you have reports, service report. If I click on service report, you get, this is for the admin if he wants to view all the services and if all the charges are here. Now we go back to the condition where a client wanted to give a feedback on a project. So this was a new project that was created, and hence he knew the project ID was number 11, and then he can go on to say excellent service, and you say add feedback. Now if I go back to the feedback table, you will notice that number 11 has been added onto the table saying excellent service. Going back to the feedback form, go back home, and yes, that is our project. Thank you so much.